With it being officially September and pumpkin spice is back at Starbucks, there is no better time than the present for us to really start decorating for fall. In this video, I'm going to share with you guys some of my favorite ways to really decorate for the fall season that do not involve spending an unnecessary amount of money at Target. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Starting off with wreaths. So even if you're not somebody maybe necessarily who really decorates for the season, usually no matter what, people do decorate their front door, usually the outside of their front door, with a seasonal wreath. And wreaths are also one of the most expensive purchases you will likely make during the fall season. So how can we make this a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more affordable, but not sacrifice style? What I generally do is I will find a wreath from a high-end store that I absolutely love, whether that be from McCaffeyie & Co., a Floral, Pottery Barn. Now it's time to take a closer look at the florals used. So this says it's a golden fern wreath. So unfortunately, I don't have any golden fern stems, but I do have so many faux fern, either stems, garlands, wreaths themselves, that I can pull from, simply paint with different mixes of acrylic paint to get this golden fern look. I had a base color that I would alternate between adding more yellow to, and then more purple to, and then more brown to. And in doing that, I was able to create this kind of variated look that resembled something like you would see on McCaffeyie & Co. Because as you can notice, it's not all the exact same color. There's variations within this wreath. With all of our fern stems now dry, it's time to combine them together to make little bundles. One thing I do want to also point out is you want to pay attention to the direction and the orientation that the leaves are facing. So this specific wreath has a more horseshoe-like format versus having something go clockwise or counterclockwise. If you're trying to replicate something, just paying attention to all of these details will also help you get more similar to the look. I attach all of my bundles with wire, leaving an opening there for our bow. And because I had so many of these DIY supplies already, I was able to create this wreath for well under $10, and I think it is the perfect start to our fall decorating. Which brings me next to our florals for fall. This is one of the easiest ways to infuse that seasonality into your space, and it definitely does not have to cost these Magnolia A-floral prices. You can get a very similar look without having to break the bank doing so. Starting off with real. So not accessible to everybody. It also depends very much where you live. So for me right now, because that's all I can really go off of, we did grow some sunflowers this year. So that would be a really easy way. Just take some clippings from some sunflowers, stick them in a beautiful vase, and immediately you have a more fall inspired look. Addition to that, even if the florals that you have aren't maybe necessarily fall, like hydrangeas are more of a summer and spring floral, you can definitely dry them, and that in itself will give you a more fall inspired look. And of course, the most simple that I'm pretty sure everybody could get their hands on are branches. Branches really speak to the fall season, as leaves of course fall off of the branches. So very easy, inexpensive, almost free ways that you can get a more fall inspired look in your space. But with that being said, again, I know not everybody has access to the same things. So that is really where faux florals come into play. So also there's just that added benefit of not having to really maintain something, and it just always kind of looks great. The Goodwill outlet for me is always the best place to find really great faux florals. So for example, I found these maple stems here, and then I also found these branch-like stems here. As for this maple bundle here, would be perfect for summer decorating, but we're not decorating for summer, we're decorating for fall. So again, very easy thing to do is simply just change the color of the leaves. So again, went into my acrylic paint stash, mixed up about 3 different color variations that worked well together, focusing the lightest color in the center of the leaf, and then got progressively darker to the outside of the leaf. Also made sure to paint the bottom side of the leaf. I know it takes more time, but I think you get a more authentic look in doing so, and also trying to avoid paint in areas like the stem. For application, generally I like to use either a damp sponge, or you could even use a makeup brush just to make sure that you're blending those colors together really seamlessly and it looks really natural overall. With our florals now complete, it's just time to decide on a vase. So for me personally, the Goodwill outlet is the most affordable resource because you can find really great ceramics and glassware at just 49 cents a pound. While there, I came across this crock style vase. Now, initially, another woman was going to purchase it, but she ended up putting it back at the last minute and warned me that when I went to go grab it, that there was a pretty severe crack in it. Because she was a reseller, she decided to put it back because she wouldn't be able to get much for it. So for people like me who don't mind filling it with spackling or different types of epoxy filling or wood filler, depends on what it is, but I don't mind doing that because I'm likely going to paint over it anyhow, versus this piece ending up in some landfill somewhere. We can give it new life. So that is exactly what I did. I just filled it with spackling, sanded it down, painted it with some shiplap magnolia spray paint, and then ever so slightly distressed it with antiquing wax that I always keep on hand. Adding in now our painted maple stems, things that look just like this from Pottery Barn. Even affordable stores like Home Goods and Target can be upwards around $29.99 and up. And if you can go to the thrift store, spend a little bit of time painting different pieces, reviving them, bringing them back to life, or giving them a new life, you can create beautiful, unique pieces for your space if you are on a budget this fall. Couple more little tips about styling faux stems, and this is more related to glass vases or glasses that you can see the bottom of that faux stem. So I really don't like to see a bend at the bottom just so it's the appropriate height. If you really don't want to cut that stem down because you want to use it in other capacities, I would suggest using a not glass vase, because that right there is obviously a dead giveaway that this is in fact a faux stem. Other things, it's important that whenever you're sourcing stems, especially from big box stores like Hobby Lobby or ordering them from Amazon, that you're shaping them. They're unusually straight. You don't, again, really see that in nature, so you want to give them some organicness and some movement to give them a more realistic look. The last thing I want to mention here is just, if it is a glass vase, adding water just really does give a more authentic feel. Although they're fake, and of course they don't need it, it makes the overall presentation look more realistic. Now that the majority of our florals have been adjusted for the fall season, it's time to focus on artwork. Now, of course, I don't recommend changing every picture you have in your space to be more fall inspired. It's just choosing a couple choice areas to make that swap. So for example, I have this beach picture here that I always keep up during actually spring and summer, but I want something that feels a little bit more fall inspired. So that can mean different things to different people. Some people like the signs that say, "Hello pumpkin, fall is here, sweater weather." That's not my personal style, and there's nothing wrong with that if that is your style. But for me personally, it's just leaning into a more moody space. Nature inspired sketches that are vintage are always a nice option. For example, I found this one at the Hartville thrift shop for $5. I loved the frame. I actually really did love the frame that it came in, but it was just too big for this wall. So I also found a different frame at the Goodwill outlet. The sizing was so much more appropriate for this wall. And then also I loved that black mat. Black mats are really great for fall because, again, they just lean into that darker, deeper space. They work so well also for Halloween if you decorate for Halloween. Just simply combined these two thrifted pieces together for a really custom, unique artwork piece. But you can also do this with things that you just already have. So I already had this canvas artwork here, as well as this frame here that I thrifted many years ago. Just going to, again, combine these two pieces together. In order for it to look a little bit more realistic, I do like to just go in with some satin Mod Podge, a small little detail brush, and just paint small X's all the way across the canvas, just to give it a more painting-like look and less like a print. So many high-end designers will do a stacked look with wall art, and almost always I think the key is to make sure that there are different types of artwork. So I have a sketch here and a portrait or painting style of an artwork here, but the frames are quite similar. Taking the smaller one, I'm going to place that one on top. The larger one on the bottom creates a really cohesive but custom look, but I did so for just about the $10 price point. Other really easy things you can do, if you have any family photos from maybe last Thanksgiving or 3 years ago on Halloween, incorporating those into your space not only makes it feel more personal to you, but also will give off a more fall-inspired look if you're on a budget. The next thing I like to do when I'm decorating for fall, in addition to swapping out the florals, changing up some of the artwork in choice areas, is to style a basket for fall, which is so easy, and you can honestly probably do this for next to free. So taking this basket that lives here pretty much all year long, we're going to make it feel a little bit more seasonal by what we place inside of it. These include, but are definitely not limited to, adding firewood to a basket is a really nice way to give off that fall feeling. Birch logs work as well. I thrifted these birch logs, I think last year, for $3 a piece, and I have used them in so many different capacities for both fall and winter. Depending on the size of your basket, adding a small blanket or a big chunky scarf is a nice way to usually either add a little bit of texture, a little bit of pattern, but you're just using things that you probably have in your closet. One thing I had in my closet, and actually it was something I was getting ready to donate, was this sweater here from Topshop. It is such a cute sweater, but it makes me so itchy. So whenever I have things like that I just know I'm never gonna pull out and wear, rather than donate it, what can I use it for decorative purposes? So I could just choose to make this a lumbar pillow, which would definitely be a lot easier, but you can also just really simply make a little pumpkin pillow. And one thing that I find whenever I'm in Home Goods, or even in Pottery Barn, last year I showed you guys that velvet green pumpkin pillow, they just look a little too perfect, and I like my things to feel a little bit more rustic and imperfect, almost like a gourd shape. So to take this sweater and turn it into that is very simple. You're just going to take the bottom section of the sweater, remove that ribbed section as well, and then because the sides are already done, you're only just going to have to make running stitches to both the top and the bottom. So you're just simply going to turn the fabric inside out and just make one running stitch across the bottom there, and then pull tight. If it's very wide, if your fabric is very wide, just add some securement threads there so the thread doesn't snap. Once that part's complete, then you just want to flip your fabric right side out and fill it. You can use filling from an old stuffed animal, you can use filling from an old pillow that you were getting ready to donate. Whatever filling you have, this I'm sure fine. Just fill it and almost overfill it, so then that way when you're closing it off again, everything is really nicely filled out. To close it off now, just create small lips around the top, and then now do the running stitch through that fabric. Again, pull tight. Then to add those divots that you'll see in different pumpkins and gourds, you can use anything. I'm just choosing to use twine here, just wrapping it around until I get that nice gourd-like shape that's a little bit imperfect. Grabbing a stem from my stash. If ever I see stems at the bottom of the Goodwill bins, I'll just grab them and attach them to these pumpkins instead, since they're much more my aesthetic. Just simply used an embroidery needle with some twine and sewed it in place through the bottom so it would stay nice and secure. I think somewhere along the way, especially with social media, we've been so influenced to buy all of these new pieces for our homes just because the seasons have changed. And that's just really not true. There are pieces in your space that should be working year round. What I want to emphasize is how can we add that seasonal touch with things that we might already have, or make it a quick and easy swap. So starting off with candles, which I think is probably the easiest and most achievable way to really infuse that seasonality, both through scent and just visually as well. And truth be told, I literally never, and I mean never, buy candles brand new, and I'm gonna tell you why, because I find them all the time at the thrift store. And sometimes they are used, but oftentimes I would say they're not, and they're always in those very typical scents. I think a lot of times people get them for gifts, they never burn through them, they're decluttering. You can score some really great, amazing quality candles at the bins if you just do a little bit of digging. For example, I found 2 of these 26-ounce Crossroads candles for just pennies on the dollar because it is a glassware item, and then I also found 4 of these amber glass jars. This is barely a DIY. We're basically just melting down the wax, and then we're going to pour it into new containers. 2 tips is just to, of course, protect your surfaces as well as your hands, and then also with some painter's tape or duct tape, whatever you have, just create almost like a V around the candle of the wax that you melted down so it just pours right in and it doesn't make a mess everywhere. Because again, it's glassware, so it's only 49 cents a pound. I spent under $2 for all 4 of these amber glass candles, and I will definitely get a lot of use out of them this fall season. Same deal goes for your taper candles, just by simply swapping out a lighter or a white taper candle into something a little bit moodier, darker. These black candles came from the Dollar Tree. You get 2 for $1.50. I think they look very chic, very high end, but super affordable. Another really easy swap is if you display any of your plates or your glassware and it's clear or just pretty neutral overall, maybe instead display something that's a little bit moodier, a little bit darker, something that really speaks to the season of fall. So when I found a set of 4 of these, are originally from IKEA, set of 4 of them was pennies because all of the glassware at the Goodwill outlet is just 49 cents a pound. I don't necessarily have to restyle my entire kitchen shelves. I can just literally swap these clear glasses for these instead, put these away for the fall months. While we're in the kitchen, let's talk about a couple bowl filler options. So there's so many different things you can put inside a bowl that really speaks to the season of fall. I think we all know pumpkins, pine cones, acorns, antlers, all of those things really lend itself to more of a fall aesthetic. And what's great about fall specifically is a lot of that stuff is free. Now, of course, that depends where you live, and I know antlers technically would be free, but the likelihood of you finding them in the woods isn't high. So I would recommend either sourcing them from the Goodwill bins, which is what I do. I have found quite a few antlers. Like this one, for example, it was a bottle opener, decided to just remove that component, and now I can add it to my filler. Also, if you're like me and you like to display seasonal fruits and vegetables in a bowl or in a tray, this is a really easy and functional way to decorate, quote unquote, for the season, but it's something you'll actually use and it functions as decor as well. Similar idea to that is if you have a cake stand in your kitchen, maybe you like to display little sweet treats. So for fall, really nice options are, of course, any pie item. Now, your girl is not a baker, so I definitely will store buy these and then we'll eat them, we'll put it in here, and it can look aesthetic, but it's functional as well. As excited I am for fall to be here, there's definitely a few things I'm not so crazy about. So the first thing is that, of course, it gets darker much earlier and the days get a lot shorter. So one thing that I recommend all of you doing is find an area that could really benefit from additional lighting. So I spend quite a bit of time here at this table editing and making different projects. I wanted to have a little bit more light on those really dark days. So I always have this planter here on this side, and instead of leaving it as a planter, since we already did the florals, I wanted to turn this into a little lamp. Now, I am one that I hate cords. I would rather charge up any light bulb, replace any set of batteries, because I cannot stand seeing cords everywhere because I just think it looks messy. So taking our planter, we're going to take a Dollar Tree candlestick holder and put it inside. I chose this one specifically because the opening was a bit bigger, which made it the perfect fit for my rechargeable light bulbs. I will link the ones that I use in the description box below because I find that they last a really long time and they are actually bright. For the lamp shade, I knew I had a shade at home that I already wanted, but I didn't have the right fitter for this situation. So one thing I like to do is go to the thrift store, spend a whole $1 on a shade. It actually doesn't even matter what the shade looks like. You're only buying it so that way you can get the component that you do want. And thankfully this one had that. And again, it was just $1. Just combined all of these pieces together. What is so nice about projects like these is A, I didn't have to spend a lot of money at all. And then B, this is not permanent. If I get sick of the situation or I want it to just be a planner again, no problem. All I have to do is take that candlestick out and it's just as it was before. Now, the second thing I'm not really looking forward to is illness and getting sick. And of course, that's just something that comes along with the fall months. And I can't do anything about getting sick, but I can do something about how ugly the tissue box covers are. So if ever you find like a one-off box, this is a shagreen box, found it at the bins. It's got a perfect like fall tone. I just decided to make a small slit in the top of that box, and then we're just going to use that as our tissue dispenser. With all that being said, that really wraps it up for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope in this video I was able to de-influence you a little bit, that you don't need to buy everything brand new every time the season changes, and you can use things that you've had from previous years, from the thrift store, or even for free, and still achieve that beautiful high-end fall look if you are on a budget. I hope everybody has a fantastic week, and I will see you back here next Sunday. Bye for now.